economics are Sorry, can I start? Okay, Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the ninth session of Reimagining Economics, a Transdisciplinary Approach. Let's begin our session with the recitation of Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. So, inshallah, today Dr. Zaid will continue with the session that we started from session on Bitcoin, and inshallah it will be followed with some discussion and have a fruitful discussion, and looking forward to your participation. Yes, Dr. Zaid.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this gathering and help us to increase in knowledge and to give us the good knowledge and to be able to act on this knowledge. Ya Rabbil Alameen. So in the previous session, we kind of talked about what are cryptocurrencies and some concepts of al-amwal, money, and the difference between money and amwal and nuqud, so on and so forth. And we had a good discussion around the objections to cryptocurrencies that I was able to review from a fiqhi, ahkam point of view, Islamic ruling point of view. So one of the interesting things that I think I can probably touch on quickly before going to those who talk or emphasize the benefits of cryptocurrencies is this issue that maybe cryptocurrency is actually halal in itself or permissible to use in itself. However, it is because how it is being used and for the purposes it is being used, it becomes haram. This is the concept of prohibiting the means. محرم لغيره وليس محرم لذاته أو تحريم وسائل. So that was again one of the major hujjah or concern that was raised by major scholars like Al-Sheikh Ali Al-Qaradaghi, so the International Union of Muslim Scholars. And again, the issue I have with that one is that yes, sometimes criminals use cryptocurrencies, but it's also being used for many good by other good people for good purposes. So again, there is no consistency in this. So to make a blanket statement that it is all haram because some are using it for nefarious purposes is not consistent unless you really put all these guardrails or these, and then in that case, well, anything is used for haram is haram. That is also a well-established concept in Islamic fiqh and usul fiqh. So then today, on the other hand, I kind of put all the positive points in one slide. I did not break it down into separate slides, and I want to really go quickly over them. And again, to a certain degree, challenge these benefits that they are not as universal as tight as it is sometimes claimed. So if you say that it is self-contained and tamper-proof system that prevent government abuse, that is again, I mean, we've seen, it depends on which cryptocurrency you're talking about. And this is, again, it's very critically important to understand and to really carefully read the governance of these cryptocurrencies, who has a vote to change the logic, the production rate, because at the end of the day, it is a voting. It seems to be that there be a voting. There is a voting system that you can use to decide on the policy of that cryptocurrency. Then once you say that there's such a thing, then there is a chance for people for the rules to change without your knowledge. Then who has the voting power? And in this case, it seems like it is a very capitalistic approach. I mean, if you have many of these coins, then you have a stronger vote. That means if you're rich, for example, or yeah, I mean, of course, you could have been one of the early investors or founders, and that's why. So you don't necessarily be rich, but by the time the cryptocurrency has picked up, a specific brand of a cryptocurrency has picked up, then you're probably already a multi-millionaire or multi even more than that. So it's just again, but there's also this idea that it is foolproof. Is it theoretically possible for somebody to come from outside and impact the system with strong enough computing power? It's just that I want not to say that this is not 100% foolproof. Just when we take these statements, it should not be on their own, stand on their own, but understand how this is really being applied and used. By the way, this is also the similar problem that we have with fiat currencies. That you don't really trust the government when they say we will protect the value, the purchasing power of a currency. The country of Argentina, they went through many episodes of rapid and massive inflation. So, and they end up wiping out more than 9 zeros from their currencies. So they have to change the whole currency or just wipe out. There's peso, Argentine peso, and there's a new Argentine peso, and then change the whole name into real or something like that, and then they kept doing that. At one point in time, they said, okay, instead of fully dollarizing and using the dollar, because the dollar was practically the currency everybody is using for most purposes, they said we will introduce a currency board, and the currency board is like for every Argentine peso we put, we have a dollar that backs it up. So theoretically, that can work. It is practically a form of dollarization, but it is, let's say, a less severe form of dollarization. A dollarization is when the country either unofficially or officially start using the US dollar, or let's say, to generalize that, use the currency of another sovereign country like a euro or the Swiss franc and so on and so forth. Right. Some African countries use the French franc, and these are examples of sometimes generally called, currency substitution, currency competition, and sometimes generalized to dollarization, because the dollar tends to be the currency that is replacing local currencies. The challenge with that currency board, that promise of the government to maintain this alignment between pesos, Argentine pesos in the market or in circulation, and dollar reserves is as good as the economic conditions and the pressure on the government. And sure enough, after 5 or 6 years of maintaining this currency board, the government violated its promise to maintain the exchange rate, and again started and then ditched the currency board. So that is again, the issue that of governance is very important, and what really makes a government respect its word, and what makes the central bank respect this, not indulging in a inflationary printing and supplying of money. So here, the second, and of course, as usual, as you've seen from the first session, I am happy to have your question maybe at the end of every slide. Try to make sure that you all have your points, inshallah, and we'll have a discussion. So the second point, it can be used for lending on fractional basis. I have no idea why that is impossible. If it is a currency and there is a banking system, definitely fractional system can be used. A fractional system is simply, trying to match, maturities of loans, and as long as there are long and short term need for currency and long and short term loans, you can always create a system to match these maturities and use the excess currency that you have whether it is fiat currency, whether it is gold, you can have a fractional reserve system. And in the case of gold, I mean, that's how, at least the story that we learn in economics, that, banco as from bench, Italian word, and then merchants, and they would find themselves having gold saved at their stores, and then they can use it for lending purposes because it exceeds the day-to-day need for gold, to then withdrawn gold. That's a very quick way of telling you the story of that. So fractional reserve system can work with gold, can work with fiat currency, it can work with cryptocurrency as well. Bitcoin, so unless you want to say there's something in the governance of the currency that prevents a fractional reserve system, or there is something about the ledger system. But again, that is maybe it's a technical thing that can be overcome. So Bitcoin has, and cryptocurrencies in general, I don't want to limit this to Bitcoin, have the characteristics of gold in that it is inflation proof, decentralized, divisible, scarce, and finite. So yeah, so in the case of, let's say, Bitcoin as an example, here that it is inflation proof, but then you have to ask yourself, what is this inflation? If it's just rising in prices, sometimes that depends on just how much of that currency is offered, and if some people are holding on or monopolizing, and then they dump large number of these currencies in the market, then that leads to an increase in supply. And with that, a drop in the price, the purchasing power of the Bitcoin potentially can drop down. So that would be one scenario for why Bitcoin may also lead to. But then you can also say, well, is this short term? Is this really sustainable? That's a good point. So maybe Bitcoin has more protection against inflation versus other cryptocurrencies, for example. So I mean, that goes back to the governance of that currency, and so that would be potentially a good point to raise. But then Bitcoin is not free of speculation, and we've seen massive swings in the value of cryptocurrencies in general and Bitcoin specifically. So I can only imagine the purchasing power of a currency swinging 20-30% at a time or more. So it's really, it's concerning. So cryptocurrency's utility as a currency is improving all the time, and this is connected with the network effect, as in so the more people use cryptocurrencies, then it is the more useful it is. So this is good, but there's also the potential of, and this is something I sometimes emphasize and warn people, that cryptocurrency is a new technology. So imagine Bitcoin being, for example, the first version of Apple phone. And then you can have other smartphones or even other Apple phones that are better than that first version. And once you introduce a better version of that currency, and you're locked up because you said this is the governance and this is this and that, and then somebody else has discovered that this is a better governance, this is the currency with better features. And I've seen cryptocurrencies with strong features try to prevent the use of that cryptocurrency for immoral purposes, for example. Then maybe people, or it has a faster transaction rate, maybe has lower transaction cost, so on and so forth. It has a better governance in the sense of its production, and speed of introduction into the market follows more reasonable criteria that maybe takes into consideration the global economy or something like that. And people find that is maybe it is better suited and has better protection against strong swings. We know some currencies were backed by dollar and gold and other things. So just like the issue here, the key feature here is that maybe a currency is popular and has a lot of demand at one period of time, but this might shift over time because there are better currencies. So yes, while the more people using currency make that currency more useful, that's true. But then this is not a law. This is not something that is guaranteed because this process can shift the other way around. Provide anonymity. Yes, this can be a potential feature, but I mean, again, many law enforcement agencies around the world is finding ways around it. So it is not a foolproof as well. And of course, there is this problem that people, when they lose their password, they say, I think the one I read this a while ago with Bitcoins. I mean, one of the reasons that it is keeping its price is because, like, I don't know, a quarter or 15% or something like that of the Bitcoins nobody can access because people have forgotten their passwords to these wallets that contain them. So they are just sitting there. Theoretically, they belong to somebody, but nobody can access them. Now, this is an incredible deal for people who are who want, advocate holding the currency to maintain its value. Of course, those who have actually still access to the currency. And then the issue of faster transaction, that's just a matter of technology and more resistant to theft. Again, we've seen cryptocurrencies being stolen and whole exchange systems being, hijacked from one time to another. So this is also not 100% a foolproof. So this is just a summary of some of the salient features. Maybe I've missed some, and be happy if any one of you would like to jump in with your thoughts or questions or comments at this point.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Zaid. Really appreciate this subject matter, and it's a big interest of mine. So I have many ideas on the subject. Just wanted to maybe highlight or maybe add a little bit to one of them, which is the preventing government abuse, as well as the issue of inflation. So that's all of this is relative to the fiat system, essentially. In that the fiat system is used to siphon purchasing power away from the population transparently through the use of sort of money printing, as well as pressure applied to political pressure applied to various countries through the use of sanctions, through the use of the prevalence of the fiat dollar system, as well as things like using these printed dollars by the US to fund the militaries of Muslim nations and acquire undue influence over those decision makers, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of abuse there to prevent, and so a technology or a system of money that can get us away from that has great value in my eyes. Specifically, I've looked a lot into the economics of Bitcoin and read a lot of the materials related to that. One of the books I highlighted in the discussion in the channel earlier was one called Broken Money by Lynn Alden, which basically it presents a new theory of money, in addition, or sort of amalgamating between the commodity theory of money and the chartalist credit theory of money. Basically, she presents a ledger theory of money, which accounts for the historical sort of use of money in various capacities, where money is essentially a ledger, controlling or a shared ledger in which people keep accounts between each other, decide who has what, and the salient feature of that being who controls it. So if the state controls it, then they have the power to do a lot of things. If in the case of cryptocurrency, it's decentralized and controlled by algorithm or some sort of mathematical construct or cryptographic construct, then it is much more difficult to abuse by any one party.
So this is great. I appreciate what you're suggesting. So maybe it's a good way to help me jump into just mention a conclusion, and it's really it's a point that I've been trying to emphasize throughout. Is that there's none of these options are sacred on their own. Gold, silver, platinum, rare metals, fiat currency, and none of these are sacred. So I think generally we look at, like, at least my approach to this is that there is a maqasid, there are higher objectives in Islam, and depending on the time, the place, the local conditions, maybe these objectives are met better with a cryptocurrency versus gold versus fiat currency. If we actually have a proper government, I mean, I'm not saying this that the Turkish government is perfect or anything. Just by saying, like, there was a government that's trying to pursue a foreign policy. The local currency was attacked. I mean, I think the Turkish lira was subject to speculation. And at some level, we say, like, well, the Turkish government passes minimum threshold of decency or alignment with our objective or with Islamic principles on this. Let's say, I mean, let's make this any other country. In that case, hurting that, and if that, so then here comes the role of Wali al-Amr, the person who is in charge of the affairs of the Muslims, who was chosen by Muslims, let's say, or like he came in through a just mean, is not a tyrannical ruler. And if based on that, then we have now a social contract that we would respect. We're going to elect leaders, and then, or we choose leaders, and then and we respect the wishes of what they think that is also in the best interest of the people, hopefully through shura and consultation. So in that case, if they decide, like, we really want to protect our local currency because of many different national objectives that we are trying to achieve, then what would we do in this? I personally think that if I was part of that social contract, then I need to honor that social contract. So I'm putting a lot into this example to simply drive to a point that in this case, this makes sense. In other case, I mean, like I mentioned several examples last time, if you have a corrupt government, you have, and they're just printing money, whether it is that in a government in the West or government in the East, or whatever is this government. So I'm generalizing the rule, and then it is simply tyrannical that way. And of course, there is cryptocurrencies produced by the governments themselves. So that's another whole other issue that we can also discuss. So sometimes that's what we need to qualify. It's a somehow privately produced, decentralized, and well-governed. So in this case, it becomes very good if we can actually bring some prime examples, like a really good examples of the currencies that we are talking about, so we can have really kind of a proper, apple to apple kind of as much as possible comparison. Now, this interesting idea that you mentioned, okay, we want to be ledger based. So ledger based is, if I understand it, again, if you read the book, you understand the argument better there, the full argument there. So this is, ledger is simply, are we talking simply accounting system? Well, we do have an accounting system right now. I mean, the ledger idea, I mean, that's what all these banks have a ledger, right? And we're keeping track of transaction, and the money's going from one place to another. One interesting or terrifying potential is that if you track, because these are based on chain block technology, and if you actually can track every single person or every single transaction and what was purchased or where it was, what was purchased with, with one currency, that's an incredible power, an incredible amount of information to put in the hand of potentially one organization and one provider. And one of the reasons, like for example, the Chinese, in one paper I read, are interested in cryptocurrencies for the yuan, cryptocurrency, is that they can decide that this cryptocurrency issue from will be used only on manufactured products, and then it can be only used from this time to this time. So it becomes almost like a voucher that has an expiration date. But the Chinese, of course, which I consider to be at the forefront of the most advanced, sophisticated social engineering project and a secular social engineering project in the history of humanity, using all AI, using surveillance. So they would love this idea of a cryptocurrency because the amount of power it will give them. And then just in one scenario, you can imagine the power of the Chinese military and technology in general. If they just put a cryptocurrency out there, and they're the one behind it, and they give it, cachet, they give it strong, wide usage, and without us knowing that this is really an intelligence agency behind it, and they have a backdoor. So imagine the amount of power. Imagine the influence that they can have, how they can promote it. They can promote it at the expense of Bitcoin. And you see if that is combined with like sometimes just a simple announcement by the Bank of China, Bank of England, Federal Reserve Bank, oh, we're not allowing Bitcoins to be used, or we're going to restrict it. We're going to, that announcement itself, what will happen to the price of Bitcoin? It's going to drop. There will be some scare. So there is this manipulation that happened, and then so you can keep doing that, and so central government have a lot of power to bring in instability into these bitcoins or cryptocurrencies, and on the other hand. So this is a scenario. It is a possible. I think it's a feasible scenario. So, but then it goes all back to. Are we emphasizing the point of the governance? Do we understand very, very well who is behind these cryptocurrencies? And sometimes this anonymity and secrecy may prevent us from understanding who are. So maybe who are behind this cryptocurrency. So maybe that we need something, for example, in the governance, that if your ownership exceeds 5% or something like that of the amount of cryptocurrency in the market, or whatever percentage that is sufficient enough to impact the value or impact the vote, then we need to know who is this person behind it. So to understand what is their incentive system, and how they might be able to affect the production rate of this currency or any other policy related to it. So, but this is, I appreciate your point, brother Omar. Okay, so if I go on, unless we have another comment quickly, we can move on. But so here, so the Maqasid approach to this, like I said, like Brother Omar helped me get into this point, is that we really focus on the purpose, number one. What is our objective? And if that objective is actually something that clearly the revelation calls us to take care of. And in this case, we're trying to achieve, at least in this course, we call Reimagining Economic and Finance, at least provide the analytical tool. So it is not me who is telling you, or Eldus or Amreen telling you, this is how you should think about this. This is the ruling on this. It is more important to us, and at the Maqasid Institute, is for us to think, and to think critically, to think through multidimensional approach, and throughout the thinking process, keep the Quran and Sunnah center, and benefit from the tradition, from the ahkam of the fuqaha and Muslim experience and historical experience, but not make this experience sacred on its own. It is everything sacred, whether it is come from the east or the west, based on the Quran al-Karim and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, obviously, it's something that was produced by Muslims throughout our Muslim history. We think that makes it, closer to Quran and Sunnah, because many of these people have been, our great scholars have been, inspired by the Quran and Sunnah, but don't take it at face value. Still, you need to evaluate it and be critical of these experiences and these positions on the basis of their historical context. Just like I was saying with my experience with the European Fatwa Council, I felt like really their experience and their fatwa to prohibit the use of cryptocurrencies is influenced by some personal experiences and limited, exposure. And sometimes scholars are, influenced by the position of a certain government, whether it is the Turkish or it is the Egyptian, so on and so forth. Sometimes we have the formal scholars from these countries, they might issue fatwas because it matches what the rules in these countries would like to see happening. And this has happened during this time period. This also is consistent. This happened throughout our Muslim legal jurisprudence history, that there are scholars who are issuing fatwas that really that benefits the power structure that exists at the time. So moving on here, so another layer of that help us understand this phenomena more, properly. We say, like I said, we purpose or maqsad, holism, and connectivity. And the connectivity bit here is just how how is this technology, how is just understand all the plumbing in the system. How does a cryptocurrency, for example, bring us together, brings us closer, achieve some social aspect, so on and so forth. And then when we also, the holism part here is that you really need to not only look at a topic search in the Quran al-Karim and the Sunnah. I'm going to look for every reference regarding nuqud or money or currency. That is not the right way to do it. Because if you are concerned about nuqud and if you understand what wider nuqud or as a solution to a problem, what is as an objective to achieve. We're trying to increase transactions. We try to have just transactions. We have to have economic activities. We want to have a cycle of rizq being activated throughout the society. So certainly concepts like rizq, like taskhir, like cooperation, ta'awun, al-bir wa taqwa, concept like shara wa yashri wa yabi', and the concept of riba, concept of credit, all of this jumps into the conversation or needs to be considered as part of when you're reading the Quran al-Karim. And when you look at cooperation and taqwa, and this, they're now even bigger. So that's like what I did with the previous session. I started with Surah Al-Fatiha and told like this Surah Al-Fatiha will put our mindset in the right, will give us the right mindset and the right frame of thinking before we approach this concept, this discussion. Because if you don't, then you end up being incredibly just technical and transactional, and we call this is the historical challenge of separating fatwa from taqwa. And it is summarized in this fashion. Then the other point that I wanted to also emphasize here is that we really need to understand the technical details. And personally, I don't claim that I know every single technical detail of the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency transaction, but I do have background in big data and and that kind of computing and data science. So that has helped me to understand it. But I know that also this field of knowledge and this technology has even more layers of complication. So here I'm saying that suddenly my problem with when we discuss many new technologies from an Islamic point of view, first, we do not really have proper technical knowledge in that area, and then we pass rulings based on this. I remember one time a mufti here in part of the Fiqh Council of North America who switched his fatwa in the span of 10 minutes. And the specific fatwa was about face transplant. So he said, well, this is just for luxury and for nice looks and this and that, and then it is not permitted in Islam. Then a doctor got up and said, like, but there is massive psychological needs and this and that and trauma when it is a face is mold or burned or this or that. And then so well, in this case, again, maybe it is halal. So why did you rush to making a judgment and then quickly in a few minutes you change that fatwa? See, that is what really, I think it is incredibly harmful to understanding Islam holistically and understanding the maqsad or the purpose or the hikmah of Islamic rulings here. So here we say also this is a so this comes also the issue of multidisciplinarity and maybe also connected to this, the need for collective ijtihad, as Dr. Ildus advocates. And here, we need to look at multiple sciences and how they all interact with each other. Right. So moving on, so at the macro level, here just would like to give a flavor of some of the considerations that I see it, I read it. I read from the Quran Kareem about the consideration at the macroeconomic level, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to, in Surah Al-Shu'ara, وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ وَلَا تَعْثَوْا فِي الْأَرْضِ مُفْسِدِينَ. Right? So this, do not defraud people of their property, nor go about spreading corruption in the land. So you can see أشياءهم as their property, their things. So there is a macro level. Like at the macro level, how are we managing a monetary system that does not debase the value of what people owning or own? So sometimes this happens through restrictive export policies. For example, if you restrict the export of, of wheat or this or that, sometimes it happens that the value of what farmers have produced will drop down. In the case of, and this can be considered a bakhs for what people have and own. If you consider like something like expired, or certain properties or certain car age, suddenly it is that no longer will allow diesel cars to run on the street. Suddenly the value of these cars will drop down. So these are all examples. Now it comes to the money and currency. Yes, there is this issue of inflation. Inflation is a form of general tax on the population. So it is a form of بخس للناس أشياءهم, and this leads to ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين, and this leads to spreading mischief in the ground on earth. And the simple form of mischief here is that this is dhulm, and there is dhulm, then people find ways and means. If they cannot address that dhulm and that transgression, then they will. Some of them will start falling into crime or into trying to get even, or losing faith in the system. And this is something we see actually in some countries. And then the other thing which I find it of the other area that we often use. And we like to focus on كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم, which is the middle of this other ayah ما أفاء الله على رسوله. in Surah Al-Hashr. Sometimes we have this problem of picking one part of the ayah. We don't look at the beginning, we don't look at the end, we don't look at the few ayahs before, we don't look at the full overall context of the surah itself, and then we pick one portion here. So the approach that I would like to say that we benefit from this, but we really have to really respect the overall context of the ayah and not to blow something out of proportion here. كي لا يكون دولة بين الأغنياء منكم, so it is not circulating only among the rich or powerful or wealthy among you. It is narrated in part of a context, larger context of war spoils. And if we want to maybe, again, I'm going maybe a little bit beyond the context of the ayah, but maybe like a qiyas on that, if there's like some natural resources and you're having some treasure or a strong income coming from these natural resources, for example, or whatever, you can think of other forms, then out of that, this ayah was instituting specifically, in the case of spoils of war, that 20% will go to the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, so that he can spend it on the qurba, which is like the family of the Prophet sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, as this is how it was understood at the time, and the orphans and the masakin and the travelers and so for social purposes. So this is going to be money going to support one of the treasury of a country or the nascent Islamic state. So, but then 80% is still going to go to the people who were participated in that spoils of war. So just my issue here, there is definitely some macro learnings that we can take out of this ayah, but I also want to caution about taking it too much out of the Quranic concept it came in, and also out of the Sunnah application of this ayah. But then some of the question here is fiat money a form of riba? This is again to وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُم, because the government is printing it out of nothing. But then out of nothing, would you call cryptocurrency? Like if that applies to fiat currency, what about people, in cryptocurrency? Maybe the same situation takes place there. If it is only based on algorithm, and they say, well, algorithm is based on the use of energy and use of calculation power, which is, again, there is a big challenge there. I did not mention that suddenly right now, the people who are able to produce cryptocurrencies are people who invest millions of dollars in these massive computing farms. So this is not so who is really producing this? That the rich and powerful is getting into this game and producing this money. And now that this cryptocurrency that we are celebrating is actually a monopoly of the rich and powerful. I would love actually even to hear your perspective on this. And suddenly, well, the use of that energy can be also israf, so on and so forth. But here was an interesting comment that I heard recently from Sheikh Jasser Oda, that this printing money and production of money, creation of money digitally, usually, is a form of riba, because it is a زيادة عوض بدون عوض. So is inflation a mass step? So this is something I touched on. How applicable is the wealth circulation concept in this example? Because sometimes and when I want to connect this with the final point that I have here at the bottom of this slide, is that what about expansionary monetary policy? So this is the part of the conversation that I don't typically hear about. So one of, we say, the benefits and contributions of having an independent monetary policy, let's say, or even monetary policy in general, is what John Maynard Keynes calls the fine-tuning. policy of monetary of the economic performance, so that if you're hitting a recession, then monetary policy is one of the best fast tools to help an economy out of a recession, by easing money supply, by quantitative easing. Then you can reduce the cost of money, reduce the cost of capital, and that either prevent a recession from turning into a depression or incredibly bad recession, help reduce unemployment rate because of a recession, and and yes, this is a hornet's nest again. Who really benefited from this? The big banks benefited from this. Big corporations benefited from quantitative easing. But so we either can differentiate between a situation where inflation might be directed to benefit the small people, there was a possibility, for example, of the quantitative easing that took place during the Corona crisis, or even the 2008 financial crisis. It could have been directed to more citizens, so that it does not become دولة بين الأغنياء منكم. Not only the rich and powerful and big corporations have access to that quantitative easing, but we could have made it, if you just paid people's debts and mortgages and medical debts and so on and so forth, the college debt, maybe that would have achieved the same. So what I'm trying to do here is that to disconnect two things. There's the idea of expansionary monetary policy, and if it is done in a certain way, it can help reduce the effect of a recession. And there is, of course, corrupt way of doing monetary policy. I understand maybe it'll come in your questions. It'll be interesting to discuss. Let me stop here and get your questions and see if some of you raise some of the counterpoints and debating can raise a debate here. Anybody would like to contribute?
I'll go if no one else wants to start.
تفضل.
Jazakallah khair. So on the question of essentially the issuance of this currency, I think one kind of meta point I wanted to make is I think it's fairly useless to analyze all of cryptocurrency as a whole. And I think because they have different governance structures, different issuance, different everything, really. So since I know Bitcoin, I'll talk about that. In terms of issuance, I think the way I've conceptualized it as essentially creating a block is a service that is being provided. It's the recording of transactions. It's being a witness to a transaction of many people. And the block reward that's received by the miner is a reward for that service. So I would say that's definitely, it seems to be an Islamic sort of arrangement. Whereas with proof of stake, something like Ethereum or something else like that, personally, I've completely divested from Ethereum because I completely agree with Sheikh Jasser. That proof of stake is very, very much like riba for my comfort. So I in my personal life, I've not partook of it just for that reason.
So I appreciate and applaud that the critical thinking you're put into this, and you're striving to find what is the most halal way to go about it. That is exactly, I think, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us. Just like Umar ibn Khattab's description of taqwa, like you're walking in a thorn field and you're really making very sure that where you put your footstep carefully, not like just walking nilly-willy through it. And that sometimes really shocks me when I deal with some Muslims, because they're doing all kind of things and then, oh, is this halal? Oh, really? Now you're asking after you put and you've been dealing with options and this and that, and now you're asking me if it's halal or not. But here, what I would love to hear from you, Akhi Omar, if we just engage for a bit here, Okay, so this is a service, but like, who is really able to provide the service of the mining of Bitcoin? Is it Zaid using just a MacBook producing this, or is it somebody with a farm of NVIDIA, top cutting edge NVIDIA processing power, GPUs, computing powers, that we found a place in the world where the cost of energy is incredibly low, and and the rules and this, and it is that. So is it now also monopolized, practically monopolized in the hand of a few producers who's really scaled this up to the next level? So then, is it small people really doing this, or is it really major players, very wealthy people who are doing this? Allahu alam. So I don't know if you have looked
Yeah.
into this.
I have actually. Yeah, there's a very good paper on the subject called "Stranded" by Alex Gladstein. It basically discusses how certain providers of electricity, or like uh, not base load, but like intermittent load electricity providers in places like Africa or other isolated places, which essentially have an internet connection but don't have access to share their power with the grid, are able to subsidize their production for agricultural needs or whatever of electricity by subsidizing it with mining, essentially, so they can make the entire project work better. So there's people like that, and then there's people like me who I have a Bitcoin miner in my basement, and I participate in a pool, and I earn Bitcoin that way.
Yes,
So
yes.
so it's
No, this is good.
there's fractional sort of ability to participate from small players, but then
No.
on the macro stage as well, there's geopolitical implications, because a lot of the countries out there who have recognized Bitcoin as a upcoming player in this monetary system have started mining or creating their own sets of miners to sort of oppose the hegemony of the dominant monetary system led by the U.S.
No.
so that
No.
they can evade sanctions. For example, like Russia, as soon as they were sanctioned, they did a heavy investment on a governmental level to essentially make themselves able to do international trade by mining their own Bitcoin, where they're
Yes.
trying to be excluded by the current system.
Yeah. This is wonderful. Actually, I really love the idea that you mentioned, and I want to connect it with something bigger in the operational model that we're trying to achieve in the Maqasid Institute. So what you mentioned, like, you have an operation, like a mining effort, and it is part of a pooled effort. So this is, when I mentioned the concept of connectivity, that one application of the connectivity concept is that if we cooperate, if we work, if we network with each other, then we can achieve a lot. And one of the biggest challenges that we have in the civilization that we live through is it tends to breaks us apart and atomize us. But then we do have the means of communication and collaboration, so on and so forth, to help us to counter this impact, or use the technology in a way to bring us closer to each other. So connectivity, or even call it silat, a modern form of silat al-rahim. So now, if we take this concept one more step, okay, what about if we design a cryptocurrency that prevents concentrated large producers from producing 10 times the cryptocurrency that or like the coins versus small producers, and make everything pooled. So, and then, so as much as possible, diffuse the process of this production of the currency through the really large masses, to prevent this monopolization of the process. Is this good? Is this bad? Is this closer to the Islamic spirit? So again, it is not a black and white situation. It is striving towards ihsan, striving towards the best state of affairs, because this might immediately It is as again I love the statement from Nabi Shu'aib عليه السلام. It says, إن أريد إلا الإصلاح ما استطعت. Are you making the status quo better than it was yesterday? So if it is that, then we become like the thought and intellectual leaders. You know, what is what is Islam's intellectual and moral leadership in this world? This will be a form of this having Islamic thought and intellectual leadership is that you know, and we are in this case وتعاونوا على البر والتقوى ولا تعاونوا على الإثم والعدوان. I mean, this is one form of this تعاون and that we can inshallah you know, propagate والله أعلم. So I love this example.
If I may just for a minute.
Yes.
The technologies they have a characteristic of you know, being once they are accepted, and then they have a life of their own, and they continue to be evolved, and people you know, reiterate, come up with new versions, better versions.
No.
And until maybe it becomes either widely accepted, or maybe or it just fades away. But there is a question, if we look at it from the purely economic perspective, also is the question as people, as Muslims, as just ordinary people, what is the opportunity cost of this? I understand that we, for example, I used to work in how to say work? I tried working as a trader in forex. You see, in when was it? 2008, 2009, right around the global finance crisis. So what happened? What I saw is people from all walks of life just trying to get into this area of technology. I mean, it's the online trading and so on, just to protect on the one hand, to protect their earnings, on the other hand, just to get ahead, maybe with their investments. You know, they invest into something, they believe they can make some money out of it, and unfortunately, as a group, it's the whole system is designed in such a way that it's negative sum game. It's not even zero sum game. So even from within the system, I have seen that how big players, the market makers, they're able to game the people. I mean, they can just do something to you know, trigger your whatever the you know, the stops and so on. So basically, the majority of people lose, not because they are bad traders, but because the system is designed that way to make you lose. And the market makers, they make most of the money. And so what I'm afraid is that you know, we are interested in this in these technologies and in cryptocurrencies, and they do provide some avenue, maybe as investment, or maybe also as an avenue to come up, or as a service that people mine them, and then people use them for exchange. So as a medium of exchange. So this is all fine. But then what is in the overall picture, taking into consideration the opportunity cost of something else, some other things that we could have done with this funds, with this money, for example. What would be, and taking into consideration in smaller countries, and maybe in developing countries, the need for food, let's say the need for locally grown food, for organic food, for you know, for the to develop local entrepreneurship, and so on. I mean, there are so many other things that can be that can be done. So on the one hand, we see that the people are interested to invest in these technologies, and for various purposes, of course. And maybe the majority of those, the main purpose would be to take advantage of the of this growth, and interest in these technologies. But on the other hand, we have other things that could have been done. I mean, if we take this opportunity cost approach, and so the benefit of versus costs for all this, how do we really analyze and think about this from this macro perspective, not only as a means of payment, but also as something, there are other things that could have been done. So I'm just, posing this question here.
No. This is great. That's a good point, Akhi Eldris. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for sharing this. I think it's a valid concern here. So here the issue comes to, again, the objective. What are we trying to achieve here? And is this approach of the cryptocurrency is the best way to achieve it? There is incredible amount of waste of resources involved, in the sense that what about all these other cryptocurrencies that have been mined and developed over and produced over years, and then sometime that they're no longer being in use, and then they drop completely in value, or maybe even close down, whatever it is, or the code is get corrupted, or so imagine there was a huge amount of also loss of resources. On the other hand, it's what are we trying to solve for? We're trying to, the whole thing about Bitcoin is trying to slow down the production rate of money. And of course, there is a stated goal that there's a maximum number of coins, and if the production of coins sped up, then the code slows down the acceptance of the new code, or makes the code more complicated, or algorithm more complicated to slow down. So there's the slowing down mechanism in the code here. So here, because of one issue, I kept thinking, what if somebody finds an early application for quantum computing applied to cryptocurrency, and with quantum computing, it can potentially solve these long strings much faster, and then start pumping currency. Where then supposedly the logic of the algorithm has a way to deal with this increased supply of money, assuming. So it'll be a very interesting situation. But then the question that we're trying to do is to slow down the production of money and the supply of money, which is, again, as a concept, this is what Milton Friedman and others were talking about. We need just to have predictable, constant supply of money. So the core idea is not new on its own. There's different ways to achieve it. And now, if you're not going to achieve it through governments because they're just prone to producing too much fiat money, and we're going to do it somewhere else in some other fashion. So then we say, okay, can we combine, this connectivity and having this pooled way of owning this money at the level of, I don't know, profession or country or geographic region, but then instead of this computing power, it can be simply time stamped, and it is immediately everybody has ownership, or a fractional ownership of that currency. So in this case, it is direct infusion of money to everybody in that country, or in that whatever boundary, whoever is part of that collective. Then so that can remove this issue. So the logic here is we're going to distribute the money based on this timing algorithm, for example, and then we don't have to have this massive investment in NVIDIA technology and other GPU technology. Allahu Alam. So it's, again, we're just simply brainstorming and trying to, that's what we call, again, the process of ijtihad. And ijtihad is that you think of something, a solution, and it either works, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you double the reward, or it does not. And Allah still subhanahu wa ta'ala give you at least one reward, one portion of reward. But so moving on to this, the micro consideration, the slide has been here. So you can see actually this ayah, several times, the same idea mentioned in several ayat in the Quran Kareem. So in the micro consideration, I brought about another ayat, because of the previous one, I quoted وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. This is in Surah Al-Shu'ara. And then here, the same idea, وَيَا قَوْمِ أَوْفُوا الْمِكْيَالَ وَالْمِيزَانَ بِالْقِسْطِ وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ. And of course, the Quran Kareem does not repeat itself. There is a hikmah and reason why this is. In this case, specifically, there is mentioning of transactions and not defrauding each other, and making sure that our measures are mikyal and mizan, is just, is fair, and it is well maintained, so that we achieve bil qist. So qist, again, is one of the objectives, and qist is like properly apportioning rights. وَلَا تَبْخَسُوا النَّاسَ أَشْيَاءَهُمْ, that this term again is mentioned in the Quran Kareem. Of course, if you take Dr. Dawood Abu Bakr, he likes an approach to Maqasidi al-Quran that emphasizes how often certain concept is repeated in the Quran Kareem, and that has higher maybe ranking in terms of importance of maqasid. And here, الوفاء بالمكيال والميزان is an important objective. To prevent تبخس الناس أشياءهم is another important objective. And تعثوا في الأرض ولا تعثوا في الأرض مفسدين is the third objective. So all of this need to be part of our consideration of this currency, just monetary system that we want to advocate for. So here we come to the social considerations that I would like Sister Amreen to jump in, and I just start the conversation with this ayah, which sometimes I'd like always to refer to as a foundational ayah for all of Islamic economics, and finance, which discusses really after discussing Qarun and this incredibly wealthy person, and how he corrupted himself on earth, and his collaboration with Fir'aun. So you have the political power, you have the economic power, and working together to corrupt earth. And then on the other hand, a believer should seek with that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us in Dar al-Akhirah. And then there's this concept, وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. And this is something we were discussing even like yesterday. In the future, is that debt and money is not every single aspect of debt is bad and wrong and haram. It's sometimes debt and the credit system is part of humanity and human history and human interaction, and can be actually a mean to do good on earth through the credit system, if it is done justly and properly. And same thing with currency system, can be a mean to do good. With that, I would love to hear what Sister Amreen would like to share with us. تفضلي.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Zaid. I will just provide some of the background and about social implications of the Bitcoin. So there are crypto enthusiasts. They call themselves like Bitcoiners, true Bitcoiners. So they are a proponent of use of technology and Bitcoin and blockchain technology for an alternative monetary system, like to create money. So their basic idea is that governments and corporations are corrupt, and so they are the current monetary system favors them, the government and the banking and corporation. This new system technology can help us to overcome the corruption. So and also the element of trust, that we don't have any trust on our governments and these corporations. So it will overcome the mistrust problem. So they say that new technologies are trustless, and don't depend on an institution. So this is one aspect of those who are proponent of the technology, but yeah, they also it is a kind of ideology as well, because usually money is something that is a social technology. It is produced when people in a society live with each other and trust each other, and money is produced in the society as a trust relationship. So these Bitcoiners or crypto enthusiasts did usually downplay on the idea of the financial risk that crypto can have. You know that the value of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, is fluctuating. I will share also here like how much it is fluctuating. So it has implications from the Islamic perspective about Hifz al-Mal. So they also do not consider that many of the governments themselves are trying to now launch their own central bank digital currencies, and many of the corporations also are involved in blockchain technologies. So the idea that the technology can solve the problem of corruption, and the governments and the corporations are not trustworthy cannot be really overcome, because these governments are taking the initiative to adopt digital currencies, and also many of the corporations and many banks actually they are putting a lot of money into the tech giants like new tech firms and fintech and all these things. So money is actually also, from the sociologist perspective, they think that money is power relationship. So those people who have the control of the creation of money are the people who have the control or power to create the social realities. So these were some of the points. So the question arises that why cryptocurrencies is even valuable in the first place, like what makes them valuable. So usually money and value is to be created in the is a social construct, and humanity decides what is valuable and what. And from an Islamic perspective, when we translate money, is mal, like mal is something that is valuable. So there are many movements for democratizing money, and they are proposing different monetary reforms, such as sovereign money, but that money should be belongs to public, and it should be produced by the government. And one of the Islamic economist, Anas Zarqa, he mentioned that money is a social prerogative, and so the benefit of creating money should belongs to the society as a whole. So here, if I share this screen, you can see hopefully that the value of Bitcoin is fluctuating so much. So how is it going to solve the problem of store of value and hifz al-mal? So this is one of the big question. And for a money one of the good money, one of the characteristic of good money is to have a store of value and stable value. But we can see that the Bitcoin is like fluctuating too much. Like it's not stable in value. So this one thing I wanted to share, and one more thing that there is. So, how can I share? Okay, yeah. I hope you can see the screen here. That in 2017, the 18, I guess, yeah, 17 or in 17, the price of Bitcoin was as high as like 19,000 USD, and this was an increase of almost 1,800%. So this is something that is totally like speculative, based on speculation. So these are the slides I'm sharing from. This is from Prof. Ahmed Kamil Mira. So he says that, does Bitcoin fulfill the good money criteria or not? So in terms of maybe divisibility, homogeneity, mobility, and the ease to make transaction, it may fulfill the criteria, but in terms of acceptability and stable value, it does not really fulfill, because people do not understand how this system works. Already there are many few people who actually know how our current monetary system works, despite the fact that it is quite simple and easy to explain. But when it involves technology, I think it is going to be a new kind of imperialism. Like only those people who have the means to produce these bitcoins and mine, they will be having the advantage over the rest of people, and there will be some kind of exclusion from the system, who those people who cannot really use the system. So uh, then Prof. Kamil Mira, he actually provide this grid for what is a kind and just money. So there is like having an intrinsic value or no intrinsic value. So so there are also like a talk about like if cryptocurrencies are really fiat or they are real. So neither they are fiat money have their own intrinsic value, and nor they are real money, but they are in between. So they are not fiat in the sense that they are not being created at the will of us, like as a legal tender, and also they are not real because they don't have a real value, intrinsic value, that people hold these cryptocurrencies for themselves only. So these were some of the things that I would like to wanted to share here. This box actually shows that these are if the cryptocurrencies are based on these things, like they have intrinsic value and they are also accepted by people on their free will, then they are acceptable. They have they will constitute a fair or just transaction, and also accepted by people due to legal tender. So there are some cryptos such as 1 gram, and then there was a gold standard base, or Petro Venezuela. These are some of the cryptos that are generally allowed by the Sharia. So the social implications of this is that I have been reading some of on the internet, some news about how people who want to do mining at their home, they are actually stealing the electricity, and because obviously electricity is quite expensive and it has a cost. So this kind of ethical ethical constraints then pop up, that how people they are trying to benefit from the system. And also it has environmental cost, because electricity, it has involved electricity. So already we are saying that due to the current economic paradigm, we are using more than our capacity of the earth. The resource depletion are depleting at a higher rate. So if we introduce such a monetary system based on not really renewable, I must say, because electricity sometimes involves solar panel. Sometimes it is fine, but still it has its own costs. So these are some of the inputs I had, and yeah. So are we going to really democratize money or monetary system by using technology? And as Dr. Ildus and Dr. Zaid also mentioned about that, there should be some kind of regulations, because if we are currently having a system that is also serving the 1% at the cost of the rest of 99%. So transition to a new system should be more we should consider all the different aspects, not just the benefit of a small minority of people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Jazakallah khair. So this is again an example of just think about the social aspects of money, and whether it's a cryptocurrency or another, and even within there, like it just opens the conversation, and that's really the. I mean, if I would want to make a final judgment on a cryptocurrency, I would just probably typically go to Brother Ildus. Let's write a paper, and that means he will write it, and I'll just put something on the margin, and then here's my judgment and my pontification on it. But it's really the purpose of any hopefully educational system is to help everybody to think about it. Even like that book, incredible book, 5,000 Years of Debt, is incredible because it just shows that debt can have many purposes, and how it builds relationships and obligations. And the Quran Kareem, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses like وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Now the immediate context of that ayah is talking about financial obligation in the context of a contract of marriage. But there is money. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizing that there is fadl between you two. And if a transaction or one prospect fell apart, that doesn't mean we forget all our relationships, maybe as brothers and sisters, as fellow human beings, and so on and so forth. So that it is this idea of وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Do not forget that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me $1, I am entrusted over this, and if I find it the best way to help my fellow brother or my fellow sister is to lend that money instead of outright giving that money. Because sometimes it's better to teach somebody financial responsibility by loaning that person money, because you have to work hard and pay it back, or you can tell me you have to work hard and pay it forward. So suddenly that obligation is actually a force for good. And it's not simply a way for me to exploit somebody else. So that would be all potentially a way for us to use this money for good. But then if the money is suffering from inflation, and this what opens the door for many of the disputes that I have seen firsthand and was part of, and we continue to discuss how do you denominate debts. So imagine if you and the easy case here is that if you've ever denominated a debt in Lebanese lira, then you're in big trouble, or the Iraqi dinar a few years ago. Then you're in trouble, because if I was trying to help somebody and I gave him that debt in lira, and sometimes the sad thing is that the person who borrowed the money is sometimes capable of paying it back, but they do not want to pay it back, because the longer they sit on the money, the more worthless that money is, because they've already converted it to dollars. So it was probably initially worth $1,000 US dollar, and the more he sits on it, then it's now maybe stuck at $100, and if he waits on it another year, it's $50, so on and so forth. So now suddenly what started as قرض حسن and إحسان and helping each other, it turns into ظلم. So here again, ولا تبخس الناس أشياءهم is not just from the lender to the borrower, it is also from the borrower to the lender. Sometimes the borrower is actually in a more position of power, especially after they receive the money. So here again, it's very important to have all this deeper consideration of what that means. And sometimes we also, in economics, we tend to speak about stuff like inflation and this and that in abstract terms. It's just pricing going up and down, but in real life, this means people losing their livelihood. This is people who are losing their, retirement, and now they're going to be in a life of destitution. They may not be able to have a necessary medical procedure they've been saving for, or they will not be able to perform the Hajj they've been saving money for all their life. So these are some real heart-wrenching challenges that often, speaking about economists specifically, when we deal with high-level numbers, macro numbers, we have absolutely no consideration of the real suffering of the people on the ground or how they can thrive with a proper monetary system. So in this, again, the example of how you denominate debt. So imagine again, if you denominated the debt in cryptocurrency in general, and if you denominated it in Bitcoin in the example that Sister Ambreen provided, and so it depends on when you decide to pay off the debt. It can mean a huge difference. Let's say in something else more stable like US, if you consider the US dollar to be stable, or even if you just benchmark it to gold, for example, then you have potentially that is this loan, is this transgression, is this proper sharing of of risk and reward, so on and so forth. This is good stuff to consider. Right. So if we go, so this is again, we've been talking about this, the response formulation that I hope, and maybe if whether Brother Omar or other people who are here would write even a simple white paper, we'd love to review. Akhi Omar, it can be your final project, a few pages. We actually would love to take these few pages, work with it, and either post it on our website that this is potential vision that we would like to pursue. It is not the full solution, but it is an islah attempt, purpose. Here's the objective. This is what we try to do, and this is how this white paper tried to pursue this objective of noble vision. This is how we're looking forward to see how we know we are facing many challenges, but this is how we can see a better future. This is how we're trying to be considerate of a bigger picture here, and this is how critical analysis of the status quo of how things exist right now, and this is why we have some meaningful insight and logic here behind it, or hikmah behind this solution that will make things better off. Let's see. Okay. تفضل عمر.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for that suggestion. In fact, the entire reason I joined this class was because I am part of one of these Bitcoiners that Sister Amreen mentioned. And I'm actually in contact with most of the leading figures of Muslim Bitcoin sort of thought. And there's actually consensus among that group, at least in that little echo chamber, that this sort of Bitcoin standard is a much more Islamic alternative than a lot of the systems that are put forward today, because a lot of the assumptions that the current financial system and the fiat system and even Islamic finance are built upon are based in essentially sort of this riba-based thinking of this fractional reserve and issuing these currencies from these loans either through commercial or government bonds, etc. So I think critically, what I'd like to communicate, and this idea of a white paper maybe is the best way forward, as you're mentioning, to really put forward these arguments. And the critical thing that's missing, I think, is to evaluate them from a Muslim Maqasidi perspective, critically, and that's what I've really been craving as I've been participating in this. So that's beautiful. Jazakallah khair.
Yep. And you're not alone. I mean, we'll be happy to, inshallah, work with you on that, inshallah, and then push it forward, because that's what we, once you start, so what is going to be really what I would be looking for is like just clear thinking. What is the objectives and why you think this objective is Islamic? So just like put out your assumptions, and that what builds a very good argument. Like we say, شرطي قبول العمل الصحة النية والصواب. So that you have to have the right have to have the proper mean to get to that objective. So here again, so like if I put it in a series of questions that you potentially can ask yourself, like okay, so who benefits from, or who is the most beneficiary from benefit the most from a system, from so we know like with the US dollar hegemony and what is that, and who benefits from this US dollar hegemony, and how can the cryptocurrency kind of be an alternative here? We know, like in the recent situation that is happening in Palestine and in Gaza, we know that people were trying to they are using cryptocurrencies to get away from the shekel, the Israeli monetary system, which is incredible. I mean, everything is controlled by the Israeli government and central bank. It sometimes shocks me when they quote prices, in shekel, and just reminds me that they are occupied in almost every possible dimension you can think of. So if they can have access to cryptocurrency, that's a huge relief, and it's much better than whatever they are having right now. Again, this is the inflationary and challenge and excessive money supply, digital-based currency systems where the local financial systems is archaic. How would that work? In this case, like in point C, what I'm trying to say is like we know that in some case studies, people benefited from using calling minute or cell phone service, minutes of service as a balance, and these minutes became a currency, because they started trading and buying and selling with each other based on trading, transferring these minutes from to each other using their cell phone. And then based on that became the direct payment system. And they were doing that because many of them were unbanked. They don't have bank accounts, so they don't trust the local banking system, so on and so forth. And suddenly, you did not need all this banking structure and hegemony of the banks and advanced economies is no longer relevant, because these people just circumvented the whole system by using a cell phone. And this is what I love, like creativity, the invention and innovation which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has imbued us with. And so if we are just contemplate and think and of ways to improve our status quo, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will open doors for us. And this is where the concept of scarcity becomes meaningless, because it is one intibah, one opening, one yaqara from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change a situation drastically from I cannot achieve this objective because I'm out of resources. Oh, but here's one alternative way I can achieve the same objective through other means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped me open my eyes to. And this is the basar and the basira concept. This is the concept in Allah يرزق من يشاء بغير حساب, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide to give a bounty upon somebody, a person or a nation. He can do instantly and without bounds. So all of this comes from our aqidah, our worldview, and it impacts our reality and real life. This is the challenge of, like we discussed during this course, that there's causality. The cause and effect is only the state of our knowledge as of now. This causality doesn't mean that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can immediately, instantly give us a different cause and effect that we never thought of. Right? So all of these are like sometimes artificial constraint. الشيطان يعيدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. The shaitan prompts you, poverty and guide you to do the wrong thing, maybe because and justify the wrong things that shaitan is all because of certain pressure that was put upon us given the status quo of things. But then connecting with the revelation helps us break through all of this. And then I do mention your suggestions, but because I also promised brother, my dear brother Indus to 15 minutes, I will just go. So, inshallah, you can these are just suggested questions. So, who benefits, who loses? It's very important to understand as part of this. And this does not need to be all in one paper, Brother Omar. But if this can be a series of white papers, for example, and everybody here can join, deeper analysis of who loses, who wins, and who this and that, and then that gets into deeper, because there is real concern that a lot of people will be hurt if this becomes, like, for example, adopted widely. Is the system fair? Fairness of the system is very important for us. And here, one issue, like here, the early adopters. I mean, I remember like the conversation with the founder of Dogecoin, and he's saying like this is a big scheme, and people get in the beginning, and it's really like this: the ultra rich get into the schemes of cryptocurrencies, and they push it, and other people join later on, and then it's really it's enriching the rich and powerful who can come in and put in massive amount of wealth into it. Critical question: is the system again fair? So this is again further discussion. I think we've discussed this in many different ways in the past couple of days. And then, yes, Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahi an Munkar is an important concept. Is this promoting Ma'ruf? Is it prohibiting or dampening down and fighting Munkar? And then future orientation. So here comes to this. So the future orientation, at least the consideration of the consequences. So this is again part of what we want to advocate in the Maqasidi view. And one example I found very interesting is when Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiallahu anhu, he wanted to suggest the use of camel hide as a currency. And the reason he stopped from doing so is that he was advised that if you do that, then people would just slaughter all these camels and just to get their hide and use that hide to as currency. So that would really hurt the state, it hurts the affairs of the people, and then because of that he stopped from using it. So that's not because using camel hide is mahal aqd and not mahal aqd, or it is intrinsic value or not intrinsic. He found a solution. He's trying to solve for a problem, and then and maybe at the time, why are we using the gold that is being mined and coined by the Roman Empire and the other ones? Let's have our own currency system. Potentially, I am not in the mind of Umar al-Khattab, but I can imagine potentially one of the challenges that you're trying to run a country and a state with gold and silver coming from the Roman and the Persians at the time. And he's looking for a solution, but this solution can lead to more problems. And that's why it was not used at the end of the day. But then there's all these interesting scenarios coming up, like the block and the BRICS unit. Again, there are many, many interesting questions to be raised there. But I love that there is this effort that we can be engaged in. And as Muslims, if we understand what the BRICS are trying to do and the challenges, maybe we can also benefit from this. الحكمة ضالة المؤمن أينما وجدها فهو أحق بها. That wisdom and good experiences is the lost property of a believer. Wherever we see it, wherever we find it, we seek to learn from it so that maybe, inshallah, we can refine it and make it in a better format that can serve our purposes in a better fashion. And then national. Let's move on. So this is really a problem-solving mindset versus an objective mind-seeking mindset, but at least problem-solving, at least just be in that mindset, because it's very important. So one thing that I usually ask a person, like I want to, Brother Zaid, is Bitcoin halal or haram? And ask him, what is it that, what are you trying to use Bitcoin for? I was like, what is your goal? What is your purpose of going into Bitcoin? That I want to say. So and then like Sister Ambreen showed us, like, well, this may not be a good saving tool. I mean, if you want to try to have a store of value over time, depends on what time period you are in. You can be losing big time, you can be winning big time. So this is, if that is your objective, to preserve the value, then it's like, that is not, I'm just simply advising you. I'm not telling you it's halal or haram or anything, but it is, if this is your purpose, then this is not the best way to achieve your purpose. They might find gold or some other form of, that can make it, that's a better mean towards saving. If you say, so then it is again, why are you trying to? So, but one of the things that, if you allow me, like, I think there is a big moral challenge for those who are in cryptocurrencies or those who are in foreign exchange for speculative reasons, for arbitrage, for this. That is because if I understand currencies from the Quranic perspective is meant to improve or like to facilitate the affairs of people without, debasing the value of what they own and this and that. And towards that end, to go and use speculation to destabilize these currencies, it is really an immoral thing to do and should be avoided. Because somebody says, like, why do you want to invest in, why do you want to buy cryptocurrency? Is because I want to make money. So I feel like, oh, so you want to make money. Like, there are many other ways to make money other than this. If you're telling them this, you want to make money because I have these people holding this currency and like they made so much money. But this is what the pyramid schemes are all about. We all start buying and increase the value of something, and then it potentially this also collapse. This pyramid scheme collapsed. But if you tell me I want, for example, to use cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, because I need to do a business transaction. So here, buyur, buying and selling, exchanging, to process exchange, and this is more fair, more facilitated, and there are embargoes or this happening on this country. I'm trying to avoid the hegemony of the US dollar. This is now we get into a proper purpose, a proper maqsad that I can, I can see why Islam would be, and even common wisdom and common sense would support this approach. Let's say, and here I'm just saying, look, we have many, many challenges that as a Muslim Ummah, we are facing, and we really, and really cryptocurrency is sometimes is one of the, maybe is a major challenge, and we should really address it. But then we really need to keep on going, because let me pose one challenge. I see like really humanity going into next phase, and this is the future orientation, the combination of quantum computing, genetic engineering, and AI technology is going to change almost every aspect of our life in the next potentially 20 years. So, and there's major challenges, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us to really do what's right, bi'awnihi ta'ala, and rise to the occasion and be good servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be loyal and true to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's guidance and the revelation and the way and the approach and the beautiful example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Jazakallah khair.
If there is any comment on what you just delivered, or maybe I can proceed.
How about we hear from you, and then we can definitely then.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can I stay behind.
All right.
Discuss it.
Well, I wanted to talk about just a very important thing which I think is connected to what we covered in this and the last week's presentation. So Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and the use of technologies. So actually, in my view, all of this is connected to a larger picture, and this is where we weigh the reality and what we do in the reality that we are right now, and how do we plan for the future. So what do we do? I mean, what is the using all the tools and using the Quran al-Karim as a guide? What do we do for the future? And so now we have in a lot of jurisdictions, people are suffering, and maybe to different extent. I mean, some are losing their lives because of the colonization and bombardments. Others are suffering because they do not have proper employment opportunities, proper economic opportunities. And the economic opportunities, they can be created by money. I mean, it's by funds, by investments. And so there is reality. Something that we in different countries we face. And just one of the examples, let's say after 1998, the crisis in Southeast Asia, and just before that in 97 in Russia, the default in Russia, it just brought to the fore the idea or the question of independence and the question of the value of money. How do we protect our money? And also at the same time, the dependence of these different jurisdictions from technology corporations, from oil and gas corporations, and from so many others. I mean, it's a huge whole international kind of macro picture of actors that really really affect or influence local politics, local policies, economic policies, and so on. And so, how do we work within the system? Using the guidance, for example, right now, what do we do? And of course, we can look at the examples and the examples. There are some things that can be done right now. And so, for different jurisdictions, for countries to get ahead, there are different things that they pursue. One is like economic independence and agricultural independence. I mean, production, local production. So they invest and reinvest locally, and also they attract foreign direct investment and try to grow the industries locally. And so the solutions are available. On the one hand, we have the money and banking system and the monetary policy. And so there are problems with it, and the people and countries face huge inflation. And even within the current system, it is possible to do something in order to bring the inflation down and to bring the manufacturing, for example, agriculture, and invest there and do something about it. What is possible, let's say, through the banking industry is what they call the window guidance, or the moral suasion. They call it. What they do is the central banking right now. Central banks with beside the this monetary policy tools of the interest rates, they can also guide the commercial banks to invest or to give credits in certain areas, and they do so, and they have been doing so in different countries, especially after some crises, and especially, let's say, after the World War II. This is how Germany and Japan, and also China after 1980s, they really got ahead because of the democratization of banking, and also the creation of local small banks, that they would invest in local entrepreneurs, local businesses. So that's one way to that the banking system, despite whatever the it can be ribawi, it can be or with all the problems that it has, the countries can still get ahead within the system. It is possible. Then another one, so window guidance or the moral suasion, and I've written a paper on that, and it was published. And actually afterwards, I remember Prof. Asad Zaman, he contacted me and he wanted to write a paper together with me. So, but I was kind of busy. So I hope we can maybe work with him later on, inshallah. But anyway, I mean, this is one area that can be that we can use. We can the countries can do, and they do use this ways to influence the money, the value of local currencies, and so on. So moral suasion or window guidance. Another one is through technologies. And this is an important area where the Muslims from all over the world, they can cooperate. All right, and I happen to be part of one large project, and I think that project was very good in terms of the potential for Malaysia. At that time, I was living in Malaysia in 2001, 2003. This was the project on bringing the technology specialists from the Silicon Valley and from other countries to Malaysia, and actually teaching people, teaching the local technology companies how to design, let's say, microchips. Which was not existent and is not it does not exist anywhere in the Muslim world. Not in Malaysia right now, not in Turkey. I'm not sure. I don't think Pakistan has it. I don't think any other countries have it except U.S., UK, maybe Netherlands, Taiwan, China, Japan, and a few other countries. So it is possible to do something to get ahead in the area of technology. So this is through collaboration, collaborative work, and the Muslims from the advanced countries, let's say, having there are a lot of technology specialists, experts in the US, in the UK, and in some other European countries who are even considering to move to some of these countries to Muslim, to make even there were even some movements with to do hijrah. So this kind of things, there is a movement of people, movement of ideas and technologies that really can be harnessed and very easily, and locally. Just this several months I've been traveling. I was traveling to to Kazakhstan and to Kyrgyzstan. And what I have seen is that there are interesting projects that can be done. And one interesting project that was that I came across is this one is was introduced by my former boss. I mean, he's a Pakistani American, but he now he wants to kind of merge the technology and agriculture. How to bring this together, and so they have created, or they rather used some of the technologies that were developed in Europe, and so what they have come up with is the precision agriculture. And so it's a huge thing, and it has a potential. It has a huge potential. So he even brought this example that the Netherlands, it's a small country, Netherlands, but it is one of the largest exporters of food products. All right. And why not, for example, Pakistan could be, or Turkey, or Malaysia, or Indonesia? Why can they not be net exporters rather than importers of food products? And it is possible, and there are technologies that, let's say, Netherlands is using. And there are huge, what is that? The houses, how do you call this? Solar? Greenhouses. There are acres and acres of land that is taken by greenhouses. So this is one area, and I have the presentation, and it's very interesting to look at. And it is, I think, it's a promising technology. Another project that was presented to me in Kyrgyzstan is a possibility to. This small nation is just 6 million people, I think, all in Kyrgyzstan. It's landlocked country, and what they have, the problem they have is it's agriculture. They have to import all the seedlings, and so on, in order to produce locally. And it is a lot of, it's a huge cost for the country. And so there are a few brothers just came to me, and then they worked out this project of what is it? Building a lab, in vitro lab, to what they call microclonal propagation. I mean, it's not really a GM. It's not genetic. It's not genetically engineering, but it is. Using the bioengineering, but it is different from genetics. So microclonal propagation, and so they are looking also for some funds. And if anybody in here in this audience would like to explore it further, we can talk about it. But what it does is that it can give this small country an opportunity to produce its own seeds and seedlings, and start producing their own. So and there are projects like this a lot. There are many, and even for the local. And so here is the reality right now. Things can be done right now. But what is the future? Let's say what is the long-term plan or future plans for local ummah, for the maybe for international, for Muslims. Just recently, I was also invited to talk about the awqaf. And we Muslims, we always talk about awqaf and zakah and all of these things, so that we as if it is something that will somehow immediately bring us out of poverty. Everyone will start just left and right will start giving for the charitable causes and so on. And so Waqf is one thing that can be used, and it is a powerful institution indeed. I mean, there is no denying its historical role and function, and the possibilities and opportunities that can be what can be done with endowment funds. But then, what is missing today? And what is the reason? Let's say in the past, why our ancestors, why they were able to have these institutions, and Waqf is an institution, Zakah is an institution, and Sadaqah is an institution, because it's a norm. And these people, they had the culture of giving. You see, in my estimation, this culture was developed through the through the Al-Quran Al-Karim, and their understanding that their understanding of the message of the Quran, and so they developed this culture, even though it had existed. The hospitality in the Arab culture, it has existed before, but then they brought it to another level. So they made it into an institution. And so then also there was a culture of cooperation, either locally and also internationally. So in the for the future development, either in whether it is economic development, military development, agriculture, there needs to be this culture of giving, culture of cooperation, and that can be achieved, I think, by the education, by communicating these messages to a wider audience, and inshallah, I think through educational initiatives, maybe like this one, like at Maqasidi Institute, at IKI Academy, at many other IIIT, and at so many other institutions, it is possible to do something about it, even at a small level or at larger international level. So I just wanted to talk to you about this reality, what we have right now, and what can be done within the system, and Islamic banking and finance is trying to work within the system, and it's fairly successful. We have to admit that it is fairly successful. But then, what else can we do? I think that is the question, and the answers, we have the answers, and there are projects that we can look into, and this will help also build for the future, inshallah. So these are just a few things I wanted to share with you today.
Thank you, Liz. Jazakallah khair. And this really dives into that side group that we have on economic sovereignty, for example. Sometimes we make it very complicated and big, but then there are easy ways to help countries in general, and Muslim countries specifically, to break away from the hegemony of and have some economic sovereignty through, for example, supplying ourselves with enough food, supplying our neighbors with that food. Otherwise, if we cannot even produce our own food, or have stable, secure sources of food, then how are we supposed to stand up for any cause? I mean, that's a part of it. We condemn Facebook on Facebook, and we condemn, so it's really like a big joke, and subhanallah. So we need to have our own tools, or at least the tools that help us to communicate, plan, think, collaborate, and independently from the hegemonic powers that that are hurting us. Yeah. So we are basically done with our time, so we can close the session, but then inshallah I was available for next 10-15 minutes, inshallah, to have any conversation with any one of you that as you like.
Sure. Thank you so much for everyone's participation. We'll end the session with the recitation of Surah Al-Asr.
جزاكم الله خير.
Mm.
Okay,
Inshallah, see you next week. I wish you all a very good and productive week.